Now, episode 6 of Gangsta, I feel like it opened up a can of worms because we had so much that was like revealed and talked on this episode. But we see now that, at least I believe that I can recall at least most of the things that had went on. And we see in the beginning, all we saw that it was now raining, and we saw blood being washed away by the rain, and all we see is a dead body. But we could tell that from the surroundings who it is. And so in a flashback now, we have Warwick. He was asking this guy all these questions, and we do learn that this family, they were not going after Mr. Monroe. That right there was like a diversion of sorts, as their real goal was like someone in his family that they want to get. Now I forgot the name of the man who actually made this order, but we have definitely seen him a few times already, and so we see now that this guy didn't. And we see now this grunt, he did not know much because obviously, he was at such a low level that they just use him, to do what the higher ups didn't want to do. And obviously that right there costed him his life because Borg was saying that, it would be a bad idea to let this guy return alive. But now going forward a bit, we see now that all the bodies that like Doug had killed, they were now all being returned to the mansion, to the Monroe mansion, and a funeral will be held for them tomorrow. And we see now that Delica, I believe his name is, he also got hurt by Doug, and we see now that like Mr. Monroe had actually wanted him to be taken to Dr. Theo, who we all know is the doctor that Warwick and Nicolas are like kind of close to. But we see now that he didn't go, as Delico had gotten another guy to just sew up his wound because it was not that deep. But we see now that Mr. Monroe actually cares a lot about Delico, and that right there did somewhat surprise me because this guy is only a D rank, and I'm pretty sure that Mr. Monroe, being the kind of guy that he is, especially when like tags are so fond of him, I'm pretty sure that he could get a much higher tag, of rank with no problem at all. But we see now that, Mr. Monroe wouldn't mind Delico being, a shield, for him for the rest of his life, because he wants to die or dreams of dying, a very quiet and lowly death, and I'm pretty sure what he meant by lowly is that, nobody would like really know that when he passed or something like that. But we see now that right there definitely kind of made Delico happy, because obviously he can be useful to Mr. Monroe if he take care of himself. But now we see that after those two have left, we have another guy coming in there, and he had warned Mr. Monroe not to be not to be so daunting on Delico, because that right there could affect the others and make them rebel against him. But now we see going back, or no, actually no, we had a flashback because one of Mr. Monroe's subordinates had made some comment about, where did the gunslinger Danny go that used to strike fear in like everyone's heart. And we see now in a flashback, we see now a much younger Monroe. And we see that in the flashback, he was like talking to someone with a cane, but for some reason this guy, we could not see his face, but obviously you could tell that like he was like an older gentleman, because obviously he was using a cane. And I do believe that this flashback, what was showing us when Delico first worked with like Mr. Monroe, because they do mention a D rank, and that right there surprised me because even though Mr. Monroe looked younger back then, obviously some years have passed and Delico has not moved up in rank. And so I do wonder why that is, because obviously this guy has some skills, so you would think that like he would be a bit stronger, but obviously that right there had not happened. But I'm not saying he's bad, but obviously he is one of the lowest, looking tags out there, as we can see from the other ones that we have been, shown so far. And so now we see that Doug and Nicolas, they were like sleeping off that downer, and we see now that when Nina, I believe her name is, was like looking at them, we do learn that that Gina, she used triple the amount. And so obviously Doug and Nicolas should not be moving around anytime soon, because I believe Warwick said that the maximum amount was like 1.5 times normal, and this girl used 3. But we do learn that the reason why she used that much especially on Doug, is because his body, has a very high tolerance to that. And that right there did, someone surprised me. But now going back to another flashback of Warwick and, Nicolas' past. And I can't wait for them to, to get the full-blown story. Because obviously, this show, it will only be 2 episodes, so right now we are at the halfway point, so it does make sense as to why, we're like getting, current time and their past, because obviously, they can only do so much in a 12 episode run, and obviously we do need to learn as much about them as possible to really understand their character. But we see that, Nicolas, obviously he was born from that man who faced that we have not seen clearly yet, and I have no idea why, but we learn now that he was born from this guy knocking up a prostitute, and we see that he thought Nicolas could be useful to him and sell him on for money, obviously as like a tag or twilight or mercenary, whatever you want to call it. That right there is how his father was like treating him. And we see now that this guy actually killed his mother, and I do wonder if if Nicolas knows that, because that right there, it's just so freaking horrible. I felt so bad for him when I heard that, and at that moment I definitely wanted Nicolas to kill his dad, because we see now that all these guys just like treat him so badly, because we see that all this abuse, all like every time he gets beat up, it's like for either that group or his father mainly. But we see now him and Warwick were like definitely getting close already, and we even see now Warwick was like teaching him how to like write. But we see now that at one point we do learn about this group called the Anti-Tags, and we see now that one of them actually snuck out onto their ground, and we see Nicolas act fast as crazy, man. Like he moves so freaking fast, and we see her now actually jumping out a 3-story window. But we see now that by the time Warwick here had like made it to the window, this guy was like already dead, and you just see all this blood. And not only that, even before that, we see now that when Warwick's father, was like first told about this, he had told him, he told some mate to get his wife and someone named Michael out of there. But when it came to Warwick, he said, he said, don't bother or leave him. And that right there, which is so messed up. But we also learned that, Warwick here does have a brother, that we have not seen yet, but obviously he was brought up. So I do wonder, how his brother is toward him, because obviously, his father, hates Warwick, obviously, because after that guy was killed, and and it was Nicolas that did it, we see now that like his father went off and started attacking him and yelling at him, because his father thinks that like Warwick here is training Nicolas, in the art of killing, trying to tame him, so that way he can get him to like kill his father. And we see now that when like either one of them had got beat up, they would just say, that they fell. But now we see that, Warwick here, he was definitely worried about Alex, so he was like going to leave. But then we have Nicolas, waking up. But then we see Nicolas. At first he had some kind of nightmare, and I do believe that girl nightmare was like obviously Veronica, and we see her now pretty banged up. But her and Nicolas were like definitely close. And that right there, like, makes me so curious about them as well. I do wonder that if we will get, a flashback of Veronica and Warwick, as well, because I definitely need to see what happens to them, and mainly, what happened to her. But now we see that when Warwick was like going back, we see that when he got there, obviously he noticed that somebody was there. But when he got to the door and saw blood, that right there is when he got really worried. And we see now that when he opened the door, obviously he saw the doctor, and apparently I was like way off last week, because the doctor here was like actually attacked by Alex. And we see, right now she cannot be found. But going back to Nicolas, we had now saw him, we had now saw him awake, and he was moving a bit, because he had his sword, and apparently and going back to the flashback, apparently Nicolas would like give and celebrate at a very young age. And not only that, apparently he will not have that long of a life, because I do believe they said that he would die, in like early 30s. So I do wonder how old he is right now, because obviously he don't have that much time left. But we see that during one of these anti-tag riots, where people had signs, saying kill tags. We have, Nicolas and the other ones, going in there and killing these people. And I gotta say, that fight scene was like badass. Nicolas definitely has skill, from a very young age. But we see now that, early on in the episode, in another flashback, we have Nicolas, we have Warwick finding a book on sign language, and he actually gave it to Nicolas so he could learn it. But we see that while he was fighting, he did drop the book, and when he went back for it, someone actually threw a grenade. And I thought at first, we might see Nicolas get pretty messed up, because that grenade went off mighty close to him. But then we see, at the end of the episode, when he came back, he was definitely covered up some, obviously, bandages, because, that would did hurt. But the book here, it was not destroyed at all. It just got burned some, and that right there, surprised me, because, you would think that book would be gone instantly, but it wasn't. But going back to present time now, because obviously, left part of flashback didn't happen to the end, but going back to present time, where we have Warwick, looking for Alex, because we do learn that she really doesn't have post-traumatic stress disorder, or whatever it's called, but mainly, she was now coming off kind of like a high, where we do learn that, most pimps here, they give their whores these drugs to like keep them submissive, and when they come off of that, we see now that it kind of like, put them, in almost like a trance, like where she's not in her right state of mind, and she has like these delusions, which is why she saw her dead pimp. And we see now that when like Warwick, have finally found her, she was still not in her right mindset, and we see that like she was actually going to go down on Warwick, but obviously, he not want that. And we see now that when he had tried to stop her, she was thinking that right there was her pimp, and she was saying, don't hit me, and I felt so bad for her. But we see that, Warwick had no choice and gave her a pretty nice headbutt, but that right there had like brought her back to her senses. And he told her, that, when they're alone, don't call him by any other guy's name. And he asked her, who do you think killed him? And that right there, like made her image of her dead pimp go away. But I do wonder if that will work for good, or maybe, the doctor now will like put her on a treatment, because he did say that, like there were no toxins in the drug, and it definitely, wasn't habit forming. And so right now, and we see that once she had calmed down, Warwick here was like telling her about his day, and obviously things did not go right with him. But going back to the flashback now, we have Nicolas talking, once again, and he actually felt bad, for the book getting messed up. But Warwick here, who actually got beat up himself, just made light of the situation by joking around, and that right there is within it. So obviously, right now, the flashback is definitely getting good, and it is heating up. And we see now our characters here, they are definitely all getting their own character development, where we have Alex now trying to overcome, her past. We have Nicolas, who pretty much just wants to go all out, because obviously now he thinks that like there's no saving them. And Warwick here just had no choice but to make sense of everything, because right now he pretty much the most normal guy that we have. But overall, a solid episode. I enjoyed it. To me, like I said, it felt like it was opening a can of worms, because, just so much was like revealed and brought up in the episode. But for that, I'm going to give it probably a 7 or 8. No, a 7.5 out of 10. But of course, I'd love to hear your thoughts on this. And as always, don't forget to like and subscribe. It really lets me out. And you guys take it easy. I will see you all next time.